Hi, I'm Cherie Baugh. Welcome to the third webinar of the Business Continuity and Recovery webinar series. Esri's business team is hosting this series to share resources and workflows that can help your organization leverage location intelligence to overcome the unprecedented business challenges experienced during COVID-19. We hope you'll join us for the remaining webinars as well. If you missed the first two webinars, not a problem. The recordings will be made available for you to view and share on our Business Continuity and Recovery overview page following the end of the series. We'll provide directions to this page shortly. Business recovery by market and facility is being recorded and will be made available to you to watch again and share with colleagues. The recording will be made available within just a few hours following this webinar. As time permits, we will answer questions at the end of the webinar. Please enter your questions in the question dialog box shown here. You can enter questions at any time during the webinar. We have many resources to share with you today. Also shown here, we've uploaded a PDF document located in the console of this session under handouts for you to download and reference later. This document includes links to materials and resources that will be covered in the webinar, including the link to our Business Continuity and Recovery overview page, which, once the series is through, will be your destination to listen to the recordings of the first webinars in this series. Joining me today is Gary Sankry, Lead for Retail Industry Strategy, and Spencer Bell, Solution Engineer. We have a lot to share today, so let's jump right in. Allow me to introduce you to my colleague, Gary Sankry.
Thank you, Cherie. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So over the last few months, we've had the opportunity here at Esri to work with a number of businesses as they work on their strategies, both for business continuity and stabilization, and then also working through their plans for recovery. We provided a tremendous amount of data and templates through our business continuity page that Cherie spoke to. All of these are available to help organizations to deploy the dashboards and the geographic tools they need to understand where and how this pandemic is affecting their business, and also how it's affecting the communities in which they do business. They're using these tools to inform their stakeholders, their team members, and their customers, and this has really become a critical capability for supporting business operations, and it will set the foundation for recovery. Now, we have focused on four key areas in our work. Number one, workforce capacity. So location intelligence tools and remote reporting tools that can help monitor the health and safety of employees and how you can use that data to ensure that the resources are in place to continue to serve your customers safely and effectively. Facility status, so mapping the precise local data that you need to understand the current status of all of your facilities, if they're open or partially open or closed, and also to monitor the local conditions in those communities. Business recovery, how to prepare to reopen operations and restart and recover your business in a way that is sustainable and safe. And supply chain network resilience, so understanding with the supply chain and from end to end, and to ensure that the resources are positioned to optimize operations and also to effectively mitigate disruption. Today, we're going to focus specifically on business recovery. We know that the recovery process for business is going to be highly variable by market, and I'm positive that location intelligence has a critical role to play in informing the strategies to support these reopenings. The impact of the pandemic across markets and geographies is variable, and the way the virus is affecting communities and also the way those communities are responding to the pandemic with their restrictions on business that are going to affect is going to impact how companies can plan and implement their strategies to recover. Factors that need to be considered include local market conditions relative to the COVID cases, and then as they start to open and as those restrictions and local ordinances change, understanding where things like hours or capacity are impacted. And also keep in mind, there's going to be changing competitor activity and changing consumer behaviors that all have to be taken into account as we start to plan for those reopenings. For this recovery to be sustainable over time, and in light of the fluid nature of the pandemic, companies need location intelligence to be able to inform these plans. We're going to cover a 5-step workflow today as a guide to the planning and to implementing reopening strategies across your geographies, starting with mapping your existing location data, mapping available virus data, and then feeding that information into an operational dashboard so that you can share that information throughout your organization. This is the basis. What we're going to focus on are steps 4 and 5, and this is where we speak to the planning and forward-looking analysis that can help to prioritize market and facilities openings based on these same market conditions. My colleague, Spencer Bell, is going to demonstrate how to create and use the tools and analysis that you can use to inform and execute a sustainable reopening strategy. He's going to demonstrate how to use local data to examine trade areas. And I think right now, most of the companies that we talk to are relooking and reassessing their catchment and trade areas because things have changed after the virus as their customers have changed their behavior patterns. And then this activity can also inform a new examination of customer profiles and who are the people that are engaging with your company. He'll use these analyses to create a prioritized list of facilities for reopening. And included in this will be a number of other metrics about markets and about the locations and the area around where these facilities are. And when the analysis is complete, he's going to show how to share those insights and recommendations authoritatively throughout the organization. So now I'd like to introduce Spencer Bell. Spencer?
Thanks, Gary. So I want to start by sharing some data and resources on our COVID-19 page. And these are intended to help organizations respond, maintain continuity, and reopen. So if we scroll down, we'll see some familiar dashboards, like the JHU dashboard here. In addition to this, some other resources like data are available. If we click this, we can find a treasure trove of geospatial data. Here we have apps that are ready to use and will help better understand and help decision makers make decisions around COVID-19. In addition, we have learning materials, not only around COVID-19, but about developing your GIS skills and creating learning paths to help take you from a GIS novice to being able to create the most complex of dashboards and analyses. Last, I want to talk about solutions, and these are ready to use templates and models that can be deployed quickly into your organization. And I'm super excited to be able to share one of the ones being released tomorrow, and that's called the Coronavirus Business Reopening Solution. So once you deploy this to your ArcGIS Online org, you'll have available these solution contents. So you can see there's a dashboard, a few web maps, some feature layers, and even an ArcGIS notebook, which helps marry the U.S. counties coronavirus trends, state health restrictions with your own facilities. And being able to update that day over day helps you maintain that operational overview. So I'm going to jump into the dashboard now, and I've already gone ahead and uploaded my own facilities, and just to state, these are demonstration data facilities, but as we can see at the top here, we quickly can see both open and closed stores, the percent of each one of these as it pertains to my facility footprint, and then additional information like addresses, emails, and phone numbers. Looking at the map itself, I'm able to see the state status as given by NEMA, which is National Emergency Management Association. And this layer helps us see what states have lifted their stay-at-home restrictions, who hasn't, and who has partially unrestricted them. So to focus in on one of the states, I can click on Colorado here, and I get some additional data sets and additional variables here, like are restaurants and bars reopening, what size crowd is available, state managed outdoor areas closures, travel restrictions, a whole host of variables at my fingertips. I'm even able to click on a thumbnail here and generate an infographic from our business analyst team, which gives us additional insight into the state of Colorado, which includes vulnerable populations, COVID metrics, health insurance, and population and businesses provided by our friends and partners over at InfoGroup. If I select this down here, I can focus in solely on Colorado or any state I want to get a picture of where my stores or where my facilities are open and closed. I can zoom in and then move over to the case information tab. And what this is showing is a county trends layer available in ArcGIS Online. And it's a representation of the World Health Organization's 5 phases of a pandemic. There's a complex methodology behind it, but for a quick synopsis, imagine a bell curve. Emergent and spreading are the beginning of that bell curve. Areas are increasing. These areas are increasing day over day. Epidemic is the peak. Controlled and end stage are declining cases. If you're interested in taking a deeper dive into the methodology, find this layer within our Living Atlas to dive into the methodology. So I can use these buttons at the top to interrogate my data a little further and understand which one of my stores are in each one of these trending areas. And as you can see, there's none in emergent. There's quite a few in areas that the pandemic is spreading, epidemic, similar, and then controlled and end stage. But what if I wanted to go a little deeper? This is great for that foundational data setup that Gary talked about earlier, those first 3 steps, adding in your facilities, adding in the virus, and putting it into a dashboard. But I want to go beyond that and take it to the next level and perform some spatial analyses. So I'm going to jump over to the story map, and we're calling this market planning for business recovery. And really what this is spatial analysis in support of prioritization decisions in the market planning process. And I can't stress this enough. This prioritization decision and these spatial analyses can be used in a myriad of different business challenges across the private sector. And these are just a few of the ones that I've heard. So it can be used to help an essential healthcare provider that was never going to close their stores, had them open, prioritize their internal PPE resources or personal protective equipment to their hardest hit facilities so that their employees could work safely. So in order to do that, we needed to prioritize areas that were hardest hit and even look at IHME, Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, predictive analysis, and forecast out where the next hardest hit locations would be. Another business challenge, a QSR or quick service restaurant that needed to understand the changing nature of how customers consume their products. I know in the last couple of months, it's been hard to go to restaurants. Some have closed their dining halls, but we're seeing a new trend where people are ordering on apps like Uber Eats or DoorDash in an increasing fashion. So this concept of a dark kitchen or dark store where a QSR would build a store in support of not the public visiting to get a hamburger or sandwich, but for a delivery driver to fulfill an online order, pick up, and then go deliver to the home of the person that's ordered. That's a very different spatial equation. And so it's important to understand how this trend is going to affect the reoptimization of that facility footprint. And then third, understanding if you're a B2B apparel company, don't have many stores within the country, but you're looking to roll out a national sales campaign for a t-shirt. And we're talking about March or April in the middle of spring here. Where am I going to best allocate my national sales dollars, my national marketing spend money? Well, that's a very geography and weather driven decision. Obviously, it's a t-shirt. We're going to look at Houston, Miami, and LA, and we're not going to go sell a t-shirt to Minneapolis. So being able to understand and prioritize those decisions is very important. But I want to finally land on this ultimate question of where can I reopen my brick and mortar locations? And that's what the story map is going to talk about. So again, I'm going to bring up that NEMA layer and look at areas where the stay-at-home restrictions have been lifted. And more specifically, I'm going to dive into Texas. They were one of the first states to reopen. So how am I going to do this? I need to layer on my foundational steps. So what are they? I need to put on my Texas facility locations, add in reference layers like COVID-19 cases by county, and then let's even put in the CDC Social Vulnerability Index, because we're going to want to marry that data to our customers to understand how vulnerable they are. let's take all of these criteria and put it into Business Analyst Online Suitability Analysis. So you can see at the top here, I want to also bring in sales. So how have my sales looked the last 12 months? And I want to rate those positively because I want to open up stores that have performed very well in the past. I also want to look at confirmed cases per 100K of the area where the store is and rate that in a negative way, meaning I want stores that have low case count. I want to also layer in that customer vulnerability index, which is an average of all the customers that visit my one store. And I also want to rate that inversely, meaning I want to open up stores that have customers that are not vulnerable. And then finally, one of the most interesting ones, and one of the things I've been hearing a lot, is I want to be very close to grocery stores, because I know personally, one of the few places I've been to in the last 2 months has been a grocery store. So if I'm going to do any other kind of shopping, I want to be close to that grocery store in order to fulfill my shopping needs. So I get the suitability analysis results, I get a final score, and I can now export that out to either Excel or to a new suitability analysis layer. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this into a suitability analysis layer, layer this back on the map. So if I come down here to the bottom left and look at the legend, I can see the final score of that suitability analysis with these lighter blue dots, these bright blue dots representing that top third of site suitable scores, meaning areas that I do want to open up. Second and third are obviously second and third best criteria, but I want to focus on that first. So if I can zoom into a couple of different areas of Texas, San Antonio and Austin looks like it has a nice spread, and it really does have quite a few sites that scored highly. Houston, not as much. A lot of stores that aren't meeting my criteria, and I'm probably not going to look there first. And then finally, Dallas. Again, we can see a lot of those light blue, meaning good stores to open, up in the north of both Fort Worth and Dallas. So let's dive a little deeper, because right now we're only looking at site characteristics. Let's layer on market characteristics, and most importantly, let's look at our cannibalization layer. So you can see this cannibalization surface emerge from dark blue down to kind of a lighter white. And what this represents is all of my store trade areas layered on top of each other, and it's showing the intensity of the cannibalization based on that blue color. So to, again, look at the north of Dallas, I have quite a few sites that scored highly, but they're in areas that their trade areas are all clustered together. And if I'm looking to reopen in a trial phase, I might want to minimize some of those store reopenings in that area. So this can be accomplished using location allocation. Location allocation helps the analyst maximize the coverage of the core customer or my best customer and minimize my facilities. So we can see here the little white dots are areas and concentrations of my core or best customers. And if we look back up at the north of Texas, with those 10 sites that scored highly, I only have 5 that I need to reopen to maximize my core customer coverage in that area. So let's zoom back out a little bit to all of Texas. We can see that there's good coverage, not just in those major markets that we looked at, but even medium and small towns. And that's great because my best customer is not only in major towns, but also in all of the state. So how can we share this? And this is getting to that step 5 that Gary talked about. How can I authoritatively share that analysis up to decision makers and executives? Well, I'm going to pop out this Smart Status dashboard and take a look. So here we have a dashboard where my analysis that I had top, second, and third priorities. I'm able to quickly, if I'm an executive, come over here and just filter out areas and facilities that met that top priority of site and market suitable locations. I can come over here to the list tab and toggle on those top priorities in a list view. And I can give some additional information to those executives, like those sales numbers for rolling 12 or staff availability and store readiness. And I'll talk a little bit about staff availability. I'm hearing that there's a need for more and more employees now within a store, because now all of a sudden I need to clean every part of the store. I need someone at the front door to make sure people are wearing masks. I need to open up more checkout lanes potentially to minimize the crowds that might form in those lines. So understanding who can staff a store is very important in order to open it back up. And then store readiness is a metric that is kind of representing, hey, is my store, does it have a deep clean every night? Is there sanitizer at all the locations that there needs to be? Are there 6-foot decals everywhere? Basically, it's a metric to tell me, is my store ready to take back customers, employees in a safe way? Because ultimately, I'm not going to get back to normal if I don't welcome back my customers in a safe way. So let's dive a little deeper into one of these stores. And we see a pop-up come up, and this is giving us even more insight into what's going on around that location. And again, we're bringing in some of our partner data that resides in the Living Atlas, and it's easy to get and bring into dashboards. So we can see from SafeGraph, a human movement provider, what % of people within this census tract or area around the store are exhibiting full-time behavior, meaning are they still going to work and behaving like they did in a pre-COVID situation? Are they behaving in a part-time manner? We even have Blue Dot data, which is another human movement data partner, but they're also experts in epidemiology. And their data helps us benchmark and understand what % of devices are staying home and how does that compare to how people were behaving pre-COVID. And that's important because as those metrics become closer and closer together, and as we return more and more to that devices at home pre-COVID, we can understand that the propensity to return to normal or sales are going to return to normal quicker. Then there's spatial AI data, and they're a they scrape social media data to understand the sentiment behind what people are saying online. And green or positive metrics, which this is showing that there's hope or positivity between a lot of these social media posts. And that's another way of looking at propensity to return to normal and might help me make some important decisions. Finally, we have another infographic from our business analyst team. And what this is doing is pulling the county in which that store resides in or facility resides in and gives us some more granular information like the number of staff beds, poverty metrics, confirmed cases, and just a makeup of the population race and ethnicity and age. So just to summarize what I've shown before I send it back to Gary, we started with a template solution that layered on that those foundational steps, like my facilities and adding in the COVID and other reference layers. Then we walked through that prioritization analysis, and I can't stress enough that those analyses are applicable not during pandemic times or during tough times, but during any time for market planning. I gave 3 examples of how it could be used, and those examples could be used for years to come. And then finally, getting that great analysis that your analyst performs and putting it into a dashboard like this to give all of that great information to your executives so they can make decisions at the drop of a pin.
Okay, well, thanks, Spencer. That's a lot of information, and thank you for the recap. It just and all of the materials that we've seen today will be available at the conclusion of the webinar. One thing I do want to touch on for a little bit about from a safe reopening standpoint is also what happens inside of the facility. And one consideration for reopening, the physical configuration, there's a lot of changes that are going to have to be put in place. And here at Esri, we've got a significant practice in GIS, indoor GIS as well, that some of our customers are leveraging to plan their internal spaces and to support their social distancing inside the workplace. We can help with configurations, whether it's an office, a warehouse, your branch lobbies, or your stores. And some of the things that we talk about, both from a configuration layout, but also an optimization of existing spaces, because one of the things you want to do is not only promote employee engagement, but also engagement with your customers, but do so in a way that minimizes potential exposure. Using proximity detection to understand where we might have issues and where that might need to be mitigated. And then finally, to support the overall maintenance of the facility from a cleaning standpoint. Where do we have high traffic, or what other at-risk locations do we need a different sort of schedule from a sanitation standpoint? So with that, that concludes our content. And I want to ask Cherie, I know we're probably getting some questions, and I'd like to, Cherie will help to facilitate our questions. Cherie?
Thanks, Gary. Looks like we may not have time for questions, but we will still answer questions today. I'll go ahead and make sure to give you instructions on that in just a minute. Before I get to that, though, I want to first thank Gary and Spencer for a fantastic presentation. Everyone, quick reminder, please submit any questions that may have come up today into the question dialog box shown earlier. As I mentioned, we probably won't have time to answer them live today, but in an email that will be sent to you within a few hours of this webinar, we will also take those questions and we'll gather those and make sure to get back to you. So let's see here. Also, to learn more about business continuity and recovery resources and workflows available to your organization, you're going to want to follow the link that was provided on the earlier slide, and it's also in the handout that's uploaded to the console of this session. It's going to take you to our business continuity and recovery overview page. Also, please take the time to review the next webinar in this series, Digitize and Visualize Supply Network and Dependencies. To register for the webinar, please follow the link on this slide. It's located on our business continuity and recovery overview page. As I mentioned, we do not have time for questions today, but friendly reminder, this webinar has been recorded for you to watch again on demand, and within a few hours, you will receive an email with the recording. Included in that message is the contact information for you to reach out directly, and again, we'll get back to you with those answers. Also, last reminder to download the PDF document that's also located in the console of the session for your reference later. And that's today's webinar, folks. But we'll remain open for about 2 minutes to have you leave any remaining questions. And thanks again. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you in the next webinar.